Soft jazz plays in the background. Everything is pristine, perfectly arranged. The smell of expensive leather and hardwood fills the air. The walls are adorned with art and gold frames. Everything screams affluence. But amidst all this beauty, there's an unmistakable tension. Chuck Garrison stands by a large window, staring at the city lights below. A glass of whiskey is in his hand. He gazes out at the world as if controlling everything that his eyes land on. The perfect life. His expression is distant, reflective. There's something off about him, something missing, something dark. His calm facade begins to crack. He sets the glass down on the side table with precision. Then he sighs, his breath heavy. He takes one last look at the sprawling city lights, grabs his coat from the back of the chair, and walks toward the door. He pauses, looking out the window one final time before walking out of the frame. A knock came at the door. Chuck reaches the door of his house, a subtle anxiety creeping into his step. He checks the peephole in the door. His face suddenly changes. His eyes widen in shock, disbelief. He doesn't move immediately. It's as if he's frozen in place. For a moment, he struggles to keep his composure. He takes a deep breath, straightens his tie, and opens the door. Denise, his wife, stands there. Her beauty hasn't aged a day. She wears a warm smile, but there's something cold in her eyes. Her gaze locks onto Chuck's, and her smile widens. With a calm, cold smile, she said, "Hey, baby, missed me?" Chuck's hand grips the doorframe, his knuckles white. His breath catches in his throat. He opens his mouth to speak, but doesn't know what to say. He stares at her for a beat too long, his composure slipping. Denise, I thought you were." "I know you did," Denise interrupted. "I know what you thought, Chuck, but here I am." Chuck watches her closely as she walks past him into the house, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She glances around as if taking everything in, the space, the air, everything that used to be familiar. Chuck doesn't move at first, staring at the back of her head. His mind races, thinking about everything that's led to this moment. The lies, the betrayal, the wall of silence that surrounded them for the last few months. Denise turns, her eyes locking with his. "What happened to the man who once couldn't live without me?" she asks. Chuck opens his mouth, but no words come out. He tries to say something, anything, but the guilt is overwhelming. Denise moves through the living room, her hand trailing along the back of the couch. Chuck watches her in silence, still unable to fully grasp her presence. She has returned, and with her, all the unresolved issues they've been burying for years. Denise stops in front of a picture frame on the mantle, a wedding photo of her and Chuck on their wedding day. The couple in the photo looks as if nothing in the world could tear them apart. She picks it up, her fingers brushing over the glass, her lips curling into a bittersweet smile. "God, we looked so happy, didn't we?" Denise asks. Chuck's gaze follows the photo, then slowly moves to her face. His expression is unreadable, and he struggles with the right thing to say. "That was a different time. We were different people then," Chuck said quietly. Denise places the photo back on the mantle and turns to face him. She takes a few steps toward him, the tension palpable. "We were. But now we're just two people who have been lying to each other for so long that we forgot what honesty even looks like." Denise spoke up. Chuck opens his mouth, but the words don't come out. He's caught in her gaze, mesmerized by the calm fury radiating from her. "Don't worry, Chuck. I'm not here to fight anymore. I just need to understand one thing." "Why?" Chuck finally speaks, his voice trembling. "I never meant for it to happen like this, Denise. Chuck desperately searches for words. Denise cuts him off, her voice no longer calm but filled with an undeniable edge. "Save it," she said. "I don't need your excuses. I just need answers. Why did you push me away? Why did you lie about everything?" Chuck stares at her, his body tense. He takes a few steps toward her, then stops. The room is filled with an overwhelming silence, both of them standing there, trapped in the weight of their shared history. Denise remembers their wedding day. They're surrounded by friends and family, smiling and celebrating their love. Everything is perfect. Their hands are intertwined, and their eyes are full of hope and promise. "We thought we had it all," Chuck said, regretting. "The perfect life, the perfect love, a future without limits. But somewhere along the way, we forgot who we were, and I forgot how to love her." In S flashback, Chuck is sitting at his desk in his office, working late. The glow of the computer screen illuminates his face. He's deep in thought. In the background, Denise stands in the doorway of his office, holding a letter. The look on her face is filled with worry. Hesitant, she said, "Chuck, we need to talk about the finances. I found some things." Chuck, cold, without looking up from his work. "Not now, Denise. We'll talk about it later." Denise stands there for a moment, holding the letter, her fingers tightening around the paper. She wants to say more, but Chuck's words silence her. She slowly turns around and walks out of the office while Chuck watches her leave. His expression is unreadable, his eyes distant, locked on something only he can see. Back in the present, Denise watches Chuck closely, waiting for him to say something, anything that would explain his actions. But all he does is stare at her, his mouth opening and closing without a sound. Chuck stands there for a moment trying to steady himself, then finally speaks, his voice almost a whisper. Chuck said softly, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know how else to keep everything together. I thought I could control everything, but I lost you in the process. I lost myself." Denise steps closer to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and anger. "You thought you could control everything, didn't you, Chuck? But you couldn't even control yourself." Denise is standing on a deserted beach, her body bloodied, barely conscious. The waves crash against the shore, the wind whipping through her hair. She struggles to stay upright, her body screaming for rest, for help. But she pushes through. She stumbles forward, every movement an act of defiance. She's not going to die here, not like this. The sound of footsteps. She freezes but then turns toward the sound. No one's there. The beach is empty, desolate. Denise, now bruised and battered, continues to crawl toward the horizon. Each breath feels like a struggle, but she forces herself to go on. Denise lies in a hospital bed, wrapped in bandages. She looks at herself in the mirror, a stranger's face staring back at her. Her reflection is a constant reminder of the fight she has to win. She takes a deep breath, then another. The woman in the mirror isn't broken. She's not the woman who was once consumed by Chuck's control. She's someone else now, someone stronger. Chuck sits in a dimly lit room, his mind racing. He's losing control. He can feel it slipping away, like sand through his fingers. He doesn't know how to fix it, doesn't know how to fix anything anymore. The doorbell rings. Chuck stands abruptly, his heart pounding in his chest. When he opens the door, he's met with a face he didn't expect. Denise, in a calm and dangerous tone, said, "I'm here for what you took from me, Chuck. My life, my time. It ends tonight. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, Denise. I thought I could control everything, but I lost you in the process. I lost myself." Chuck finally admits, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. His voice cracks, but he forces himself to keep going. Denise steps closer, her eyes narrowing as she stares him down, examining the cracks in his perfect facade. "Control?" she repeats, her voice laced with both disbelief and rage. "You never controlled anything, Chuck. You thought you could control me, and you thought I wouldn't notice." Chuck's mouth opens, but he remains silent, overwhelmed by the weight of her words. Denise walks past him, continuing deeper into the house. She stops in front of a picture frame on the mantel, a wedding photo of her and Chuck from their happiest days. A younger, carefree couple, smiling in love, unaware of the impending darkness. She picks it up slowly, running her fingers along the glass, then holds it up to her face. "God, we looked so happy, didn't we?" she says softly, her voice barely a whisper. Chuck takes a step forward, his chest tightening, the reality of their broken past hitting him harder than he expected. "We were different then," Chuck says, his voice quiet, almost apologetic. "Everything was different. We were different." Denise sets the photo back down with care, her gaze still fixed on Chuck. She turns, her voice steely now. "We were. But now we're just two people who've been lying to each other for so long that we forgot what honesty even looks like." Chuck doesn't respond. He wants to, but he can't. The pain, the regret, the broken promises. He feels all of it crushing him. "Why did you push me away? Why did you lie about everything?" Her words cut through him like a knife. Chuck takes a deep breath, his hands trembling. "I didn't know how to fix it, Denise. I didn't know how to fix anything. I thought if I kept it together, if I kept everything under control, maybe we could fix it. Maybe I could fix us." His voice wavers as he speaks, the weight of his failure evident in every syllable. Denise takes a step back, a slight tremor in her hands as she balls them into fists. Her voice rises, sharp with the frustration that's been building for months. Fix us? You thought you could fix us? You never even saw me, Chuck. You never even bothered to see me anymore. She moves away from him, pacing in the room like a lioness who has finally been freed from the cage. Her words hit him like sharp, heavy blows. His mind begins to spin. The shame is unbearable. He can't take it. He can't bear to face what he's done to her, to them. But even as Denise rips him apart with her words, there's something almost distant about her. Something calculating, controlled. A part of her, he realizes, that is no longer the woman he once knew. The tension continues to build, each exchange heavier than the last. They both know this conversation has reached a breaking point. Their relationship, if it can even be called that anymore, has been dangling at the edge for so long. Tonight, it will either snap or shatter completely. I'm not the same person I was, Chuck. Denise says quietly, her voice colder now. I'm not the girl you married. I'm not the woman you used to control. And I don't want to be. Chuck flinches at the finality in her words. His mind races, trying to comprehend how everything fell apart so completely. They were supposed to be partners. They were supposed to be in this together. But they aren't anymore. They never were. Denise walks toward the door, her movements deliberate. Chuck watches her, his body rooted to the spot, unable to move, unable to do anything but watch her go. The door opens. Denise steps into the hallway, her back turned to him. She pauses for a moment, and Chuck feels a cold chill fill the room. This is it, the moment when it all ends. She's leaving him, but somehow, this feels like the beginning of something far worse than the end of their marriage. Without turning around, Denise speaks again, her voice low and full of finality. I'll be back tomorrow. You won't recognize what's left of you by then. The door closes softly behind her, and Chuck is left standing in the silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He remains there for a long time, standing in the dark, alone in a house that once felt like home. The next day, Chuck sits in his office, his head buried in his hands. He's exhausted, the sleepless nights and constant pressure taking their toll. He hears a knock on the door. Come in, he calls, his voice rough. The door creaks open, and in walks a young man in his late 20s, dressed in a sharp suit. The man's face is one Chuck recognizes, but the name slips his mind for a moment. His heart skips a beat. Mr. Garrison, the man says, extending his hand. We need to talk. Chuck doesn't respond at first. He's too lost in his own thoughts, too caught up in the wreckage of his own life to care. But when he looks up, he sees something in the man's eyes. An urgency, a knowing look. Something's changed. Something is about to shift, and Chuck can feel it. Sit down, Chuck says, finally meeting the man's eyes. Let's talk. Denise returns the next day, her presence felt before she even enters the room. She stands in the doorway, staring at Chuck, her gaze unreadable. I told you I'd be back, she says softly. Chuck stands, his mind racing. Something has shifted. Something is coming, and he's about to face it head-on. Where do we go from here? Chuck asks, his voice steady now, even though the storm inside him rages. He has no answers. He doesn't know how this is going to end. But somehow, he knows it's not going to end in the way he thought. Their battle has only just begun. The room is silent for a moment. Neither of them speaks. The weight of their shared history hangs heavy between them, the tension palpable. Every word, every breath is a choice now. But somewhere, deep within, both of them know that this is the final confrontation. The moment where the truth can no longer be hidden. And somewhere, deep within Chuck, he finally realizes it's time to let go. Chuck's fingers grip the edge of the desk, his knuckles white with the pressure. Denise stands before him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her face is a mask, but the storm behind her eyes is undeniable. Chuck can feel the pull of the past as it hovers between them, each moment a reminder of how far they've fallen. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in around them. The air is thick with unspoken words, with all the things neither of them has had the courage to say until this moment. Denise shifts, her heels tapping lightly against the marble floor, echoing like a countdown to whatever is coming next. How long have you known? Chuck asks suddenly, his voice cracking. He finally breaks the silence. Denise raises an eyebrow but doesn't answer immediately. Instead, she walks toward the window and stands there, gazing out at the cityscape. She's always had that air about her, like she could leave everything behind with a single glance. never looking back. "I've known longer than you think," she says quietly, her back still turned to him. "But I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to believe it. I thought, maybe you'd come back to me. That you'd remember who we were." Her voice falters for a moment, but she quickly regains her composure, her shoulders stiffening. "But you didn't." Chuck's heart sinks. He can't bear to hear it. The weight of her words presses down on him, suffocating him in the guilt he thought he could bury forever. "Denise, I never meant to hurt you," Chuck begins, his voice more urgent now, the vulnerability breaking through. "I thought I was doing what was best for us, for you. I thought." "You thought?" She interrupts, her tone sharp and biting. She spins around, and the fury in her eyes stops him in his tracks. "You thought you could control everything. Control me, control this life, control our happiness. But happiness isn't something you can control, Chuck. It's not something you can force." Chuck's chest tightens. He wants to argue, to tell her that he was just trying to hold everything together, to fix what was broken. But the words don't come. How can he argue with her when every word she says cuts so deep? Denise takes a few slow steps toward him, her eyes never leaving his face. She's so close now, the distance between them almost non-existent. "You broke me," she whispers, the words softer now, but no less powerful. "You turned everything into a game, Chuck. A game you always won." She pauses, then adds with a bitter smile, "But games end. And now it's your turn to lose." The words hang in the air, suffocating the space between them. Chuck feels a cold chill run down his spine. He's not sure what she means by that. He doesn't know if he's ready to know. But he knows in that moment that things have shifted irrevocably. "Denise." His voice is barely a whisper now. "What do you want from me?" She looks at him, really looks at him, and for a fleeting moment, Chuck sees the woman he once knew, the woman who loved him unconditionally, the woman who would have done anything for him. But that woman is gone, and what's left is someone he doesn't recognize. Someone who has grown, someone who has learned to stand on her own. "I want you to face what you've done," she says quietly. "I want you to look at the mess you've made of both of us, and I want you to fix it. But not for me, for yourself." Chuck feels his breath catch in his throat. His body stiffens. He doesn't know what to say. What can he say? "I can't fix it. I don't know how," he admits, his voice raw with desperation. Denise steps back, crossing her arms once more, the anger in her eyes replaced by something far colder. "You don't get to do this, Chuck. You don't get to play the victim anymore. You don't get to sit there and tell me you don't know how. You're lying to yourself if you think you don't know how to make this right." The room is silent for a long beat, and Chuck feels like he's suffocating. The walls are closing in, and the reality of what he's done, what they've both done, settles in like a heavy weight. "I've been so damn selfish," Chuck admits finally, his voice breaking. "I didn't see you. I didn't see how far you were slipping away from me. And now I'm scared that I've lost you for good." Denise's eyes soften for a fraction of a second, but the moment passes quickly. She turns away from him, pacing again, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Fear's a funny thing, isn't it?" she says, more to herself than to him. "It's always been there, right underneath the surface. But fear doesn't fix anything, and I'm tired of letting it control me." Chuck watches her, his heart aching. He can't remember the last time they'd had a conversation like this. A real conversation. Everything had always been surface level, hiding behind excuses and facades. But now everything is raw, exposed, and it feels too late. "Denise, please. I don't want to lose you. Not like this." Denise turns around, her eyes hard. "Then stop trying to control everything. Stop pretending like you're the only one who matters. You've been blind to me for so long, Chuck. I've been invisible in our marriage for years, and now I'm finally seeing you for who you really are." She steps forward again, inches away from him. "And that's something I can't pretend to love anymore." Chuck is reeling now. Her words are like daggers, but they're the truth. The ugly, painful truth that he's been avoiding for so long. She's right. Everything he did, every decision he made was to keep control, to keep everything in line, in place. But he never stopped to ask if she wanted to be part of that control. He never stopped to ask if she was happy. "Denise!" His voice cracks, and he can barely get the words out. "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say, but I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for any of this." Her gaze softens for a brief moment, but the harshness quickly returns. "You already hurt me, Chuck, and you've hurt yourself too. Because you never understood what love was. Not really. You've been living in your own world, and I've been living in mine. The truth of her words hits him harder than any punch could. She's right. He's been living a lie for so long, telling himself that he was doing everything for the right reasons when all along, he was just covering up the cracks in their marriage. She takes a deep breath, and then something changes in her expression. It's almost imperceptible, but Chuck notices. Her eyes flicker with something else, determination. "I'm done, Chuck," she says, her voice steady, no longer laced with emotion. "I'm done waiting for you to see me. Done trying to make this work when I'm the only one fighting for it. It's over." Chuck feels the ground beneath him shift. The finality in her voice sends a shockwave through his body. He wants to say something, to beg her to stay, but the words don't come. The realization hits him hard. It really is over. Denise turns to walk toward the door, her back to him. And then she stops. "But I'm not walking away from everything," she says, her voice tinged with something that Chuck can't quite place. "I'm taking what's mine." Chuck's heart races. He doesn't understand. What does she mean? "Everything we've built together," Denise continues, her back still turned. "You've made your choices, Chuck, and now I'll make mine." With that, she steps out of the room, leaving Chuck standing alone, his chest heavy with the weight of her departure. Chuck is left in the silence of the room, his breath shallow, his thoughts racing. The words Denise left him with, "I'm taking what's mine," ring in his ears like a bell tolling in a distant church. He stares at the empty doorway, his mind struggling to grasp the reality of what just happened. He's been cut loose, set adrift in the very life he thought he controlled. The lights in the room flicker briefly, an unsettling reminder of how fragile everything is, how easily things can break. He slowly sinks into the leather chair behind his desk, his hand brushing the edge of a family photo. A younger version of himself, smiling and content, stands next to Denise, their eyes full of dreams. Dreams that feel so distant now, so unreachable. He runs a hand over his face, the weight of the years crashing down on him. Every decision, every misstep has led him to this moment. How did it get here? He thinks back to when he and Denise first met, the days when they were young and full of hope, when everything seemed possible. She was always the one to see the bigger picture, to dream beyond the walls they built. He was the one who wanted to hold everything in place, to secure their future, to make sure they never fell apart. But somewhere along the way, he lost sight of what really mattered. Chuck stands up abruptly, knocking over the chair. The clatter of it hitting the floor is deafening in the stillness of the room. He doesn't know what to do now. He wants to fix it. He wants to undo the damage, to rewind time and choose a different path. But the more he thinks about it, the clearer it becomes that this was never just one mistake. It was a slow accumulation of choices, each one pushing him further from the person he promised to be. The walls feel like they're closing in again. The pressure in his chest mounts. He walks to the window, his eyes darting across the city below, but the view offers him no comfort. The vastness of the world outside seems to mock him now, a reminder that he is but a small, insignificant part of something much larger. The power he once thought he had, over his life, over Denise, over everything, is slipping through his fingers. He reaches for his phone, his hand trembling. He pulls up her number, staring at it, as if just seeing her name would make everything better. But he can't bring himself to press call. Not this time. He knows there's nothing left to say. No more words can fix what's broken between them. The silence is suffocating, and in the midst of it, Chuck hears the faint sound of a car engine revving outside. He watches as a sleek black car pulls into the driveway. A figure steps out, moving swiftly toward the front door. Chuck freezes for a moment, not sure who it is. But something about the energy of the person approaching feels different. There's an urgency in their stride that makes Chuck's heart race. He walks to the door, his steps heavy, as if the weight of his own body is too much to carry. He opens the door and standing there, framed by the dim light of the street lamps, is Daniel. Daniel, his old friend, the one he hadn't seen in years, the one who knew all the secrets Chuck had tried to bury, the one who had once been a part of his life before everything got so complicated. Before the power games, before the lies. Daniel looks at Chuck with an unreadable expression. His eyes sharp but his posture relaxed. He's always been good at that, making others believe he's in control, even when everything is falling apart. "Daniel," Chuck says, his voice sounding foreign even to his own ears. "What are you doing here?" Daniel doesn't answer immediately. He steps inside, brushing past Chuck as if he owns the place. There's a moment of awkward silence before Daniel finally speaks. "I heard about what happened with Denise," Daniel says casually, like it's just another piece of gossip. But Chuck can see the glimmer of something more in his eyes. "Figured you might need a friend." Chuck glares at him, the bitterness rising in his chest. "A friend? Is that what you're calling it now?" Daniel shrugs, unfazed by Chuck's anger. "Call it whatever you want. I'm here because I know you're not okay. Chuck, I've seen the way you've been spiraling for months. What happened with Denise, it's just the culmination of everything you've ignored." Chuck's eyes narrow. "You think you know me better than I know myself? I know you better than anyone else, Chuck, and I know what you're going through. That's why I'm here." Daniel's voice is steady, but there's an underlying tension to it, a hint that there's something more he's not saying. Chuck stands there, torn between wanting to throw Daniel out and wanting to listen to whatever it is he has to say. He's desperate for something, anything that might give him clarity. "So what's your plan, Daniel?" Chuck asks, his voice low, dangerous. "You've come to rub salt in the wound? Or do you have some grand revelation to make everything right?" Daniel meets Chuck's gaze, his eyes cold and calculating. "What if I told you that you still have a way out? That you don't have to lose everything you've worked for?" Chuck feels a spark of hope, something he hasn't felt in so long. He's skeptical, but the idea of redemption, of a second chance, is almost too tempting to ignore. "How?" he asks, his voice barely a whisper. Daniel smiles, but it's not the warm smile of an old friend. It's something darker, something more dangerous. "You've always been about control, Chuck. But you've been looking in the wrong places. If you want to get Denise back, if you want to fix this, if you want to make things right, you're going to have to let go. Let go of your pride. Let go of your power. Let go of the life you've been holding on to." Chuck shakes his head, disbelief written all over his face. "Let go? You're out of your mind. You're already losing everything, aren't you?" Daniel presses, stepping closer, his presence overwhelming. "Denise is gone. You've lost her, and you've lost yourself in the process. The question is, are you going to keep losing, or are you going to do something about it?" The words hit Chuck like a physical blow. His chest tightens, his thoughts spinning. He knows Daniel is right. He's lost. He's lost Denise, lost his sense of who he is, lost his grip on everything. But what Daniel is suggesting, letting go of everything he's built, everything he's fought for, seems impossible. It feels like admitting defeat. But maybe, just maybe, defeat is exactly what he needs. Chuck is still reeling from Daniel's cryptic words, standing in the middle of his lavish living room. The space, once a symbol of his success, now feels like a prison, its opulence suffocating him. Daniel stands off to the side, watching him with calculating eyes, waiting for Chuck to make his next move. "Daniel, I'm not some charity case," Chuck mutters, trying to regain some semblance of control over the situation. His eyes flicker to the family portrait on the mantel once more. "What are you really offering here?" Daniel's gaze sharpens. "I'm offering you a way out, Chuck. A chance to fix the mess you've made, before it's too late." Chuck laughs bitterly, pacing in agitation. "You talk like you have all the answers. But what am I supposed to do? Apologize to Denise? Beg her to come back?" Daniel steps closer, his voice lower now, like he's about to impart a dangerous secret. "It's not about begging, Chuck. It's about understanding that you can't control everything. Letting go of control is the first step. Once you do that, things start falling into place." The words hit Chuck like a ton of bricks. He's never been good at letting go. It's been his whole life, holding on to things, making sure nothing slips through his fingers. But now, nothing feels solid anymore. Meanwhile, Denise sits in her sleek, minimalist apartment, staring at her phone with a blank expression. Her fingers trace the screen lightly, the same number Chuck tried to call earlier still glowing brightly. She's been avoiding his calls, avoiding the storm she knows is coming. But despite the distance, despite the anger, part of her still wants to hear his voice, wants to feel the old familiarity of their connection. But she can't. Not now. Not after everything. A knock on the door breaks her from her thoughts. She hesitates before opening it, only to find a man in a sharp suit standing on the other side. "Denise, right?" the man asks, his tone both polite and insistent. "I'm Alex Carter. I represent a client who's looking for someone with your expertise." Denise's brow furrows. "I don't think I'm interested." But the man steps closer, a glint in his eyes that tells her he won't be easily dismissed. "I think you will be," he says with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "What if I told you there's an opportunity? One that could help you achieve everything you've ever wanted. No more compromises. No more waiting." Denise doesn't reply at first, the weight of her choices hanging heavy in the air between them. She has always prided herself on making her own decisions, but lately, it feels like life has been making them for her. Chuck's downfall, however, has not gone unnoticed. In his absence, others are starting to rise. He's built his empire with blood, sweat, and strategy, but now the cracks are becoming evident. It's not just Denise. His employees are also beginning to question his leadership. Margaret, his most trusted business partner, sits in her sleek office overlooking the city. She has been with Chuck through thick and thin, but the recent series of events have left her questioning everything. She picks up the phone, dialing a number she's hesitated to call for days. "Hey, it's Margaret," she says when the call connects. "We need to talk. This can't go on any longer." On the other end of the line, a calm, deep voice replies, "I know. We've been waiting for Chuck to crack. It's time to make our move." Margaret's hands tremble slightly as she sets the phone down. She can feel the weight of the decision looming over her, a moment of betrayal that feels both necessary and inevitable. She's always been loyal to Chuck, but loyalty only goes so far when you can see the writing on the wall. Back to Chuck and Daniel. Daniel watches Chuck carefully, sensing the storm brewing inside him. The tension in the room is thick. Chuck's face is a mixture of anger, desperation, and guilt. He's teetering on the edge of a precipice, unsure of which direction to take. Daniel knows it's time to push further. "You know, there's more to this than just Denise," Daniel says, casually leaning against the wall. "You've been chasing something for years: status, control, power. But it's all slipping away. And you know it." Chuck's eyes narrow. "What are you talking about?" Daniel takes a deep breath. "There's a lot at stake here, Chuck. Not just your relationship with Denise, but everything. The business, your reputation, it's all in freefall. You think this is just about one mistake, one woman? It's deeper than that. You've made enemies, big ones, and they're waiting for you to stumble. The moment you do, they'll move in for the kill." Chuck stands still for a moment, digesting Daniel's words. The realization hits him like a freight train. He's not just losing his personal life. His empire is on the verge of collapse. Margaret is already moving against him. His employees are whispering behind his back. His world is unraveling in real time, and the one person he trusted most, Denise, is already slipping away. "Why are you telling me this?" Chuck mutters, his voice barely a whisper. Daniel smiles, but it's cold, calculating. "Because I can help you, Chuck. I've got connections. I know people who can help you get out of this mess. But you have to make a choice. Do you want to fight to get everything back? Or do you want to let it all go and face what's coming?" Chuck's head spins, the room seeming to close in around him. But there's something else, something deeper in Daniel's words that sends a chill down his spine. Subplot: Margaret's double game. Margaret picks up the phone once again, this time dialing another number. It's a number that represents everything Chuck has worked for, everything he's fought to build. But Margaret has her own ambitions that have been growing for years. And with Chuck's downfall imminent, she knows this is her chance. "Hello, it's Margaret. I'm ready to move forward with the plan. The time has come." On the other end, the voice responds with quiet anticipation. "I knew you would come around. You know what to do." Margaret hangs up the phone, her hands shaking slightly. This is it. The moment she's been waiting for. There's no turning back now. The decision has been made, and it's time for her to take control of everything Chuck has built. Cut to Denise's decision. Denise stands by the window of her apartment, the city lights twinkling below. Alex Carter's offer lingers in her mind, a tantalizing promise of power and freedom. She spent so many years compromising, bending to the will of others. Chuck, her family, society. But now, the idea of walking away from it all, of taking something for herself, feels like the breath of fresh air she's needed. But there's still a part of her that wonders if she's making a mistake. The man she loves is falling apart, and despite everything, she can't help but feel pity for him. She looks down at the photo of the two of them, taken just before everything started to unravel. She could walk away and start over, or she could fight for what they had, for the life they once dreamed of together. But that would mean confronting the deep fractures that have been there all along, the lies, the manipulation, the unspoken truths. Denise takes a deep breath and makes her decision. Scene, the final confrontation. Everything is building to this moment. The game of power, the shifting alliances, the fragile web of trust and betrayal. Chuck, Margaret, Daniel, and Denise. Each of them poised at a crossroads, each carrying a weight they can't escape. Chuck is alone in his office now, staring at the papers on his desk. The weight of the world presses down on him, and for the first time he feels truly powerless. He's losing everything, and he knows it. But as he looks out the window one last time, he sees something that shocks him. Denise, standing in front of his building, looking up at him. Their eyes meet, a silent understanding passing between them. It's too late to fix what's been broken. But perhaps, just perhaps, they can both walk away from this wreckage and find something new, something real. And so, the final lesson becomes clear. Sometimes the greatest power lies in letting go. Denise stands alone at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the ocean. The camera zooms out slowly, leaving her standing tall, her future unknown, but her heart lighter than it has been in years. Sometimes, justice is not about what we lose, but about what we find when we let go. If you enjoyed this true crime story, hit the subscribe button and like this video for more daily family crime stories. Click on the next video to continue watching. See you there.